And it doesn't make much sense to me how they got to those final scores.
And remember, Nick is not a judge, and so he doesn't know how judging works. And so if he knew that, I'm sure he would understand how Samson Dauda achieved a perfect score. Coach Greg, and in today's video, Nick Walker is unhappy losing to Samson Dauda. And so in case you don't know, Nick Walker placed 3rd at the Mr. Olympia in December. Samson Dauda placed 6th. And so Nick, who was the highest rated competitor competing at the Olympia, was favored to win the Arnolds. And of course he should be. Derek Lunsford and Hadi, they said, no, we're going to save it for the Olympia. Nick said, nope, I'm going to show up at my best, get that $300,000 check. But he placed 2nd, and get this, Samson Dauda had a perfect score. All 5 judges had him in 1st place at the pre-judging, and all 5 had him in 1st at finals. And so of course Nick's upset. He has the right to be. He's the favorite. He's going into the show, and he improved. He was at his all-time best. And so how could he lose?
How did Samson beat Nick when he was at 6 at the Olympia and Nick was 3rd?
And so listen, after watching pre-judging, I said it could be anyone's game. All top 3, in my opinion, could have won. They all potentially deserved 1st place. It's all in the eye of the beholder. I showed Allie, who's also judged these photos, and she said, I kind of like Andrew Jacked. Personally, as I've watched all the photos again, I still think that Samson Dauda was the best. But just because I think so doesn't mean that he is.
And it doesn't make much sense to me how they got to those final scores.
And remember, Nick is not a judge, and so he doesn't know how judging works, but he does have a good eye. He very well could be a judge. He just needs to know how judges go about coming to a final decision. And so if he knew that, I'm sure he would understand how Samson Dauda achieved a perfect score.
I don't understand how Samson had a perfect score after prejudging and a perfect score after finals.
And so Nick's saying, I'm trying to get the judges on the phone, but he literally could have just asked me. I would have explained it to him. It would have took me 2 minutes, and he'd 100% understand.
You're going to sit there and tell me that Nick wasn't on at prejudging?
No, we're not going to say Nick wasn't on at prejudging. Nick was clearly on at prejudging. Just because Samson got a perfect score doesn't mean that Nick wasn't at his best.
You're going to sit there and tell me that Nick wasn't on at prejudging? He wasn't better than Samson? And Andrew wasn't better than Samson?
Yes, that is exactly what we're saying. When you have a 5, all 5 judges have Samson in 1st place. That is exactly what it means. It means that every one of those 5 judges said, I like Samson the best. I want his physique to place 1st. Doesn't mean that Samson was the leanest, that he won every single pose, that his body had no flaws. All it means is that overall, top to bottom, front to back, that Samson was the best.
Samson came out guns blazing, right? He looked phenomenal when he first came out.
And so Nick answers it right there. He came out guns blazing, looked phenomenal when he first came out. What do you think the judges are looking at prejudging when they first come out? They're looking at a guy who's impressing everyone. Wow, look at that physique. That's the physique I want to win. And so does it not make sense that all 5 judges would have him in 1st? If he came out with guns blazing, looking phenomenal? That's exactly how you judge.
But after watching the video over and over, after reviewing these photos over and over, Samson faded hard. And at finals, he actually got worse, in my opinion.
Now, as far as showing up looking worse at finals, what often happens is once you've judged these competitors in the morning, you already have your favorite in your head. You're thinking, I had Samson Dauda in 1st place at prejudging, and you go into the finals biased or predisposed to think, well, he was the best the day before, he's probably still going to be the best now. And so unless you see a glaring difference, unless one guy improves tremendously and the other guy gets way worse, oftentimes you're going to put the exact same score in the prejudging as in the finals. And I've judged dozens of shows, and this is almost always what occurs. It's very rare to, in fact, switch a placing. You have to see something that happened that changed the physique drastically, which does happen, but not very much.
You can see that Samson was not better at finals. There's no way in hell any person with professional opinion in bodybuilding will tell me Samson got better.
And so he didn't need to be better than himself. He's not being compared to himself. He's being compared to Nick Walker and Andrew Jacked. And of course the other competitors, but that is what they're comparing. And so despite the fact that he didn't look as good at the finals as prejudging, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter!
Even The Rock knows it doesn't matter, because what does matter is he was still better than Nick Walker, at least in those 5 judges' eyes.
Samson was 6 at the Olympia. Remember, Nick was 3rd.
And so consider this. Nick was 3rd, Samson was 6th, but they're not really that far off. It's not like night and day difference between 6th place and 3rd. Because remember, even Nick's strength and power Power felt Big Ramy should have been first, of which he barely made the first call out. And so the difference between a first place, fifth, or sixth place can oftentimes be up to the eyes of the beholder. One person might say, yeah, he got sixth, but I liked him the best. And that person can argue with good, valid arguments that they're in fact better than someone else. It's up to the judges.
Now, Samson is no slouch, guys, okay? This is his first Olympia just a couple months ago, took sixth.
Now consider this. Samson got sixth and made drastic improvements. He came in bigger and leaner. And what did he add to his cycle? He added tren. Guy said he never used tren in the past, added tren now. So you're all thinking all pro bodybuilder, taking everything, including the kitchen sink, just to turn pro. He only took tren the first time for this show. And so does it not make sense that he would have drastic improvements compared to the past if he was perhaps using lower doses? And so coupled with a great diet, great coach, and more super supplements, of course he's going to improve. And so when you're a judge, you see a guy at the Olympia, and 3 months later, you notice him looking that much better, you're now biased towards looking at that guy even more. Add to that the extremely tiny waist and the aesthetics, and the fact that Chris Bumstead is the most popular Mr. Olympia competitor of everyone by far. Do you not think that that could influence to a small degree the type of physique they're trying to push in the open division? I stated that depending on who wins, it could be a changing of the guard. Perhaps they're now going for more of an aesthetic-looking bodybuilder.
Nick got 100% better from the Olympia to the Arnold.
And so here's the problem with what Nick Trilogy's saying. He's saying that Nick improved 100%. That's a lot. That's twice as good. I don't see Nick making those kind of changes. For me, when I see Nick Walker, I see a guy with a lot of muscle, and he does control his waist, but he doesn't have quite as an aesthetic physique as Andrew Jack or Samson Dauda.
Samson doesn't have a back.
And so Nick is right. Samson Dauda's back double bicep is clearly inferior to Nick Walker. And you watching at home, look at the pose. Which pose is better? Clearly, it's Nick Walker. And so you're probably thinking, well, see, he didn't win that pose. How did he get a perfect score? Well, judging doesn't go by who won each pose. It's not who won the most poses. It's not 1 point per pose that you win. It's overall, you watch the whole thing, and at the end of the posing, you say, which one's better? Samson Dauda. Samson Dauda could win only one pose, lose the others, and still come out on top. If he won that pose by so much, but then lost by hardly any of the other poses, he'd still win. Think of it in powerlifting. If I won the squat by 10 pounds, then won the bench press by 10 pounds, but then a guy deadlifted 200 pounds more than me, he wins by a landslide, even though I won 2 out of 3 events. And so that's the exact same thing that happens in bodybuilding. You compare pose per pose, but you're not counting who won the pose. You're looking overall, who do I like more? And it can be, in fact, very subjective. It could come down to your personal preference. I just like the bigger aesthetic guy. I like the shorter, less aesthetic guy. And so it's not a pose for pose. It's not a perfect score decided on winning every pose or being perfect. It's just simply an overall assessment of which physique you like the most.
Shows are supposed to be one from the back. Does that not matter anymore?
It does, but not as much as people think. People say shows are one from the back. And the reason for that is because you do your poses from the front first. And so if you're not sure who's going to win, if it's a tie in your mind, you're thinking, I like that guy, they're the same. Then the show's one from the back, because if it's a tie going into the back pose, whoever's back's better, they're going to win. But if you're clearly liking one guy's front double bicep more, the shape's better, everything's better, and you turn around, the guy beats you from the rear, you're not better. It's an overall subjective assessment of who has the overall best physique. And to be honest, in the lat spread pose, I kind of like Samson Dauda. His back, very comparable. It's thicker, there's more muscle popping outwards, more 3D looking, and he's taller. And remember, a quality tall man is going to be a quality short man every single time. Now, if you're a bodybuilder, unless you're an idiot blending up chicken breasts for shakes and not taking your greens, we do have greens now available through Harder Than Last Time. Code Greg gives you 10% off, and trust me, this formula is amazing. I've seen other channels promoting a certain greens company. This, far superior. Just look at the ingredients list. Compared to other more famous brands, made sure we made it just as good or better and kept the cost lower. And so you get a better bang for your buck, more quality ingredients. And if you don't believe me, please, somebody make a freaking video. Somebody show all these ingredients. Somebody go through them. and see, is it the best one on the market? And perhaps I'll make the comparison of this to other manufacturers' brands, but I'm sure if you'll have a quick look at the ingredient list, compare it to your favorite greens, look at the price, you're going to want this.
Every judge had straight ones for Samson.
And so does it make sense now? Do you understand how he can get a perfect score without having a perfect physique? All he has to do is overall look better than the second place competitor. He doesn't have to beat him in every pose, doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be better than second place.
So you're gonna sit there and tell me Nick Walker lost the side chest to Samson.
And so no, Samson doesn't have to beat Nick Walker in a side chest or side tricep, and he can still come up with a perfect score. As stated previously, he could even win fewer poses than Nick Walker did and still come out on top. This is not shady. And I don't know, rear lat spread, this could go either way. This is very close. Clearly in the back double bicep, Nick was better. Nick seems to have better hamstrings, but Samson has more thickness in the back. He's also wider, has more cap delts, a smaller waist, is taller, and so that's all in his favor. Nick very well could have won the back double bicep, the back lat spread, the side chest, and the side tricep, and Samson could have won by virtue of looking better even in the standing relaxed pose. Just standing there doing nothing. Perhaps he has a better physique. Oftentimes judges look at you standing. Before you even hit a pose, they're judging you. They say, wow, look at that physique. That is a physique that should win. And so he hits a front double bicep and the judges are thinking, wow, look at that physique. That's the exact physique that I want to see winning the Arnold Classic. And for me, Nick's quads are simply not up to par with the rest of his physique. He has a great physique, but the quads, they're a little bit lacking. I much prefer the quads of Samson Dauda, and so perhaps the judges just saw it the way I did.
What does Samson do from now to the Olympia in order to improve on his 6th place finish from last year's Olympia? Samson needs to keep that weight down.
And so Nick's advice to Samson is not to bulk up. He's not telling him to stay shredded to maintain single-digit body fat, but he doesn't need to bulk up and get fat in the off-season. Perhaps 10% body fat off-season, it's all he needs. Look at Chris Bumstead, Derek Lunsford. Do these guys put on a ton of fat in the off-season? Yet they come into the competition in shape with a ton of muscle. And so with this win, Samson cements himself as a top threat for the Mr. Olympia title next year. I certainly expect him to place in the top 3. If he continues to improve, we may in fact see him as the next Mr. Olympia. And of course, if you're looking for supplements to help you get harder than last time, you can take pre-pump, pre-workouts. We have Acti Builder, G-Shred, GO2 Max, G-Wiz. We have so many supplements, I can't name them all. Head over to my website, click the link in the description, use code Greg, save 10% off everything. Cookbooks, training books, coaching plans by me and my team, phone call notes, subscribe, click the bell button, comment for the algorithm, like the video if you liked it, watch the boobs, follow me on Instagram, Greg Doucette IPU Pro. Head over and get the supplements, also the free training and diet program. And until next time, I am out.